Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new, welcome to Leisure Gaming. I am Leisure. We are finally in the Tearlaments format that has entered Master Duel earlier this week to many duelists' dismay. This is a fusion-based deck that has a similar feel to Flawandre's in the sense that you can make plays on your opponent's turn to possibly set a board advantage. So let's check out the deck profile. To start off the deck profile, we have 2 DD Crow, which are really great to have in a mirror match. You can discard this card to the graveyard, then target one card your opponent's graveyard and banish that card. 1 Herald of the Orange Light. When your opponent activates a monster effect, you can send this card and 1 other fairy monster from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. 1 Diviner of the Herald, and you can definitely run this at 3 if you prefer. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send 1 fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, and if you do, increase this card's level by that monster's level until the end of this turn. If this card is tributed, you can special summon 1 level 2 or lower fairy monster from your hand or deck except Diviner of the Herald. Next are 2 Tearlaments Merle. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck by placing the fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including this card from your graveyard, on the bottom of the deck in any order. Next are 2 King of the Swamp, and you can run this at 3 if you prefer. This is a great substitute if you don't have any other cards in your graveyard. This card in your hand, field, or graveyard can be used as a substitute for any one fusion material monster whose name is mentioned on the fusion card, but the other material must be correct. You can discard this card to your graveyard to add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. Of course, we have the 3 Ash Blossoms because there's going to be a lot of searching that's going to be done not only in Tearlaments but obviously in other decks. Next are 2 Tearlaments Haveness. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including this card from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck in any order. Next are 2 Tearlaments Sharon. During your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard, then send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck by placing fusion materials mentioned on it from your hand, field, and or graveyard, including this card from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck in any order. Next are 3 Tearlaments Rhino Heart, and you can drop this to 2 so that you can make room for either a 3rd DD Crow, a 2nd Diviner, or a 3rd King of the Swamp. If this card is normal or special summon, you can send 1 Tearlaments monster from your deck to the graveyard except Tearlaments Rhino Heart. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field, and if you do, send 1 Tearlaments card from your hand to the graveyard. Going into the Ishizu package, we have 2 Keldo the Sacred Protector. You can discard 1 other Earth Fairy monster, special summon this card from your hand, then add 1 Exchange of the Spirit or 1 card that mentions it from your deck to your hand. You can banish this card from the field or graveyard, then target up to 3 cards in either graveyard, or up to 5 if the Exchange of the Spirit is on your field or in your graveyard, and shuffle them into the deck. 3 Medora the Sword Oracle. You can discard 1 other Earth Fairy monster, special summon this card from your hand, then you can place 1 Gravekeeper's Trap from your deck face up in your spell and trap zone. You can banish this card from your field or graveyard, then target up to 3 cards in either graveyard, or up to 5 if Exchange of the Spirit is on your field or in your graveyard, and shuffle them into the deck. 2 Kelbeck the Ancient Vanguard. If a card or cards is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, you can target 1 special summon monster your opponent controls, special summon this card from your hand, then return that monster to the hand. If this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate this effect, and each player will send the top 5 cards of their deck to the graveyard. Then if Exchange of the Spirit is in your graveyard, you can set 1 trap from your graveyard. And 2 Yugioh the Ancient Sentinel. If a card or cards is sent from the hand or deck to your opponent's graveyard, you can special summon this card from your hand, then you can special summon 1 level 4 Earth Fairy monster from your graveyard except Yugioh. If this card is sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can activate the effect of each player sending the top 5 cards of their deck to the graveyard. Then if Exchange of Spirit is in your graveyard, you can send 5 more cards from the top of either player's deck to the graveyard. Going into the spells, we have 1 Polymerization, which can be searched out with King of the Swamp, 1 Terraforming, so that way you can search out your only field spell that you have in this deck. We have 1 Instant Fusion. You pay 1000 life points to special summon 1 level 5 or lower fusion monster from your extra deck, but it cannot attack. Also, it is destroyed during the end phase. You're primarily going to be using this to summon your Kit Kalos if you have no other way to start your plays. 1 Primeval Planet. When this card is activated, you can add 1 Tearlaments monster or 1 Visa Starfrost from your deck to your hand. Fusion monsters and Tearlaments monsters you control gain 500 attack. If Tearlaments monsters monster or monsters you control or in your graveyard is shuffled into the deck or extra deck, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. Next are 2 Tearlaments Screams, and you can definitely run this at 3. If a monster or monsters is normal or special summon and you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Also, for the rest of the turn, all your monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can add 1 Tearlament Trap from your deck to your hand. With 1 Tearlament Heartbeat, you could target 1 spell or trap on the field, or you can target 2 if you control Visa Starfrost. Shuffle them into the deck, then send 1 card from your hand to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target 1 Tearlament Trap in your graveyard and add it to your hand. Now, if you don't want to run Heartbeat, you can definitely drop this, so that way you can get an additional Scream. We have 3 Infinite Impermanents. You can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls and negate its effect. Then, if this card was set before the activation and is on the field at resolution, for the rest of the turn, all other spell and traps in this column are negated. Also, if you control no cards on the field, you can activate this card from your hand. 1 Tearlament Crime, when a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, negate the activation, and if you do, shuffle that card into the deck. Then send 1 monster from your hand to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can target 1 of your banished Tearlament monsters and add it to your hand. And 2 Tearlament Sulic. If you control a Tearlaments monster or Visa Starfrost, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effect, then send 1 monster you control to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can add 1 Tearlaments monster from your deck to your hand. When you send 1 monster you control to the graveyard, you're primarily going to be looking to send either your Rukalos or your Collide Heart if you can, so that way they can be special summoned from the graveyard to the field once again. Going into the extra deck, we're starting with my personal favorite, the Millennium Eyes Restrict, which I think is a great card not only in the mirror match but with other decks as well. Once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target 1 effect monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard, equip that target to this card, and it gains the attack and defense of that equipped monster. Monsters with that equipped monster's original name cannot attack. Also, their effects on the field and their activated effects are negated. Now, if you don't want to use Millennium Eyes Restrict, Elder Entity Entis would also be a great card to use in this deck, and you can special summon 1 level 4 monster from your hand. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 card on the field and destroy it, and this will be special summoned off of your instant fusion. Next is 1 Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Your opponent cannot target this card or monsters on the field with the same attribute as this card with card effects. Once per turn, you can declare 1 attribute this card becomes that attribute until the end of this turn, and the attribute that you're going to be going for is water. We have 1 Tearlament Kitkalos, and this is going to be your first fusion summon to continue your combo line with. If this card is special summoned, you can take 1 Tearlament card from your deck and either add it to your hand or send it to the graveyard. You can target 1 monster you control and special summon 1 Tearlament monster from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, send a targeted monster to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Next is 1 Predaplant Dragostapelia. Once per turn, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, place 1 predator counter on it, and if it is a level 2 or higher, it becomes level 1 as long as it has a predator counter. Negate the activated effects of your opponent's monsters that have predator counters. Next is 1 Rukalos. Other aqua monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. You can only use each of the following effects of Tearlament Rukalos once per turn. When your opponent activates a card or effect that includes an effect that special summons a monster or monsters, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it, then send 1 Tearlament card from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard. If this fusion summon card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can then special summon this card. 1 Kaleido Heart cannot be used as a fusion material. If this card is special summoned or if any aqua monster is sent to your graveyard by card effect while this card is on the field, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. If this card is sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon this card, and if you do, send 1 Tearlament card from your deck to the graveyard. We have 1 Burn on the Floor. Once per turn, you can target 1 card in the field and destroy it. Once while face up on the field, when a card or effect is activated, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Once per turn, during the standby phase, you can target 1 level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon that monster. 1 Abyss Dweller, and this is definitely going to be mandatory for your mirror matches. While this card has a material attached that was originally water, all water monsters you control gain 500 attack. Once per turn, you can detach 1 material from this card, and your opponent cannot activate any card effects in their graveyard graveyard this turn. Next is one Baguska. While this card is in attack position, it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Your opponent cannot target this attack position card with card effects. While this card is in face-up defense position, change all face-up monsters on the field to defense position. Also negate the activated effects of the monsters that were in defense position when that effect was activated. This is a great way to stall out if you need to buy a little bit more time to get some cards in your hand and start setting up your attack. Next is one Time Thief for Duel. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can attach the top card of your opponent's deck to this card as material. You could attach up to 3 different types of material from this card, then apply the following effects depending on what that card was. If it was a monster, banish this card until the end phase. If it was a spell, draw 1 card. And if it was a trap, place 1 face-up card your opponent controls on the top of the deck. Next, we have one Zeus. Since we have the other XCs to attack with, you could attach 2 materials from this card, send all other cards from the field to the graveyard. Once per turn, if another card or cards you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can attach 1 card from your hand, deck, or extra deck to this card as material. Next is one IP Masquerader, where you can link summon 1 monster using materials you control, including this card during your opponent's main phase. A link monster that used this card as material cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. We have one Dark, the Dark Charmer. You can target 1 dark monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to a zone this card points to, which will help you link climb. If this link summon card is destroyed by battle or destroyed by an opponent's card effect while in its owner's monster zone, you can add 1 dark monster with 1500 or less defense from your deck to your hand. 1 Sprite Elf. Your opponent cannot target monsters this card points to with card effects. This is a great way to protect your Kaleido Heart and your Rukalos. You can target 1 level 2 monster in your graveyard, or if your opponent controls a monster, you can target 1 rank or link 2 monster instead and special summon it. And 1 Mech Knight Crusadia Avermax. While this link summon card is on the field, your opponent cannot target this card with card effects. Also, their monsters cannot target monsters for attacks except this one. Once per battle during damage calculation, if this card battles a special summon monster, you can make this card gain attack equal to that monster's attack during the damage calculation only. If this link summon card you control is sent to the graveyard by an opponent's card effect, you can shuffle 1 card on the field into the deck. So that's it for the deck profile. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, go ahead, leave a like and subscribe. Also, leave in the comments below on your thoughts on which you hate more now in Master Duel. Is it Tearlaments or is it Runic? And with that, I'll see you in the next one. Later.
you